So in a recent video, I looked at the differences between the two most successful and influential coaches of the modern era, so Pete Cowen and Sean Foley. And when I was doing that research, it became clear that although there are some really kind of core differences, there's also some fundamental patterns that they both agree on. And these patterns, I don't think are aspects of the swing that are told a lot on YouTube. Now, if we think about it, if these two giants of the game with their accumulative wisdom can hold these patterns as absolutely core to playing good golf, then that's something I think we should be paying attention to. So that's what we're going to cover in this video. And at the end of the video, as always, I've got a couple of really good drills that will help you kind of get closer to moving in this way. So let's start with backswing. There are coaches out there who would see the backswing as kind of almost incidental, less important, because you can react and adapt and get to the ball from any kind of backswing, really, with enough skill. But if you're working at the elite end of the game, Foley and Cowen both agree that getting the right kind of backswing move is absolutely critical. Foley says that golf is a game of backswing. There's only 0.2 of a second to get to the ball from the top. Therefore, you've got to be in the right place. And Cowen uses the analogy of loading the spring. So biomechanically, as we are stretching the muscles and fibers and loading the joints in the backswing, they're going to recoil in the same direction in the downswing as well. And if we're out of kilter in the backswing with either our body pivot or arms, then of course that's going to mean a whole lot of adapting to try and find the ball, which ultimately is making it harder than it needs to be. And this is where they both agree on. So Cowen has his model of the spiral staircase, where he sees the backswing being a combination of rotation and extension. So the body is rotating and the right side is getting higher. Foley talks about the same thing, certainly with the low half. So back to the Cowen model, he talks about the energy of the swing going from the lead ankle to the trail shin to lead shin to trail knee, lead knee to mid thigh, etc. So you've got this kind of diagonal flow of energy through the body in the backswing. So as we're rotating, the right hip is getting higher, and then that massively helps us rotate, by the way. If we're trying to stand there and just turn the body, that is not the same thing at all. It's not as powerful, and you won't get the club up as easily, and you won't get it kind of applying downwards pressure in the same way as well. So that, I think, is a big thing. Understanding that a turn in the backswing isn't just a case of turning. That is not how good golf is played. It is understanding how we use the ankles, knees and hips to create extension and rotation to then kind of reverse on the way down. And that's why at the end of the video I've got some brilliant drills to kind of really help us find those patterns. So then, having coiled up with a combination of rotation and extension, so the vertical force as well, the downswing from both of them would be the undoing of that sequence. So Foley talks about the start of the downswing being an unweighting phase. So we don't start down by pushing off sideways or rotating. We start down by unweighting. So that is just reversing that process. So we're now moving into that leg, but we're rotating into the leg, not kind of around it. Moving down, so unweighting, he says, to then be able to push off and rotate in the through swing. And of course that is Cowen's moving back down that kind of spiral staircase to then push up and rotate through. So the interesting thing there then is, we as coaches over the years have taught a lot about the hip bump. That's not it. We've taught a lot about rotation. That's not it. It is understanding that there's vertical and rotational forces which need to happen together, and getting the right balance of those will then enable you to get the kind of horizontal, kind of lateral forces as well. So in both coaches' model, as you get the kind of up and down movement of the knees and hips, you would also get a huge element of sideways motion for free. So we don't need to kind of push off and move that way and kind of tilt the hips and do all the things that certainly I've done over the years. And the other big commonality that struck me was both coaches talk a lot about keeping the pressure on the shaft through the ball. So we'll go into a little bit more as to what that means. But essentially, I would coach certainly anybody up to, until you get to single figures, to kind of pull the handle and then swoosh it, the wrist rehinging, and that is by far and away the easiest way to create speed and to be able to control the club face, no doubt. But these coaches, sorry, work with probably almost entirely elite players, and the rules for that game are slightly different. So when they talk about pressure, that is, first of all, in the backswing, for both players, they want a combination of wrist hinge, so that's up and down motion, so a little bit of that, but also some I suppose we'd call it sideways hinge, extension of the right wrist, so it kind of moves back on itself in that manner. So as the right wrist moves back on itself, it is then in a place to be able to keep the shaft lean, going through the ball, and that's that element of pressure as the shaft is driven through the ball and not kind of swooshed through in a more, I suppose, flippy way would be the kind of more YouTube friendly term. So applying pressure to the ball via an extended trail wrist, a downwards motion, a downwards pressure on the handle, and driving the handle through the ball as one rotates. And keeping that pressure on the club, they would suggest is going to give you a better strike, less loft, and keeps the face more stable through impact. Now, there has to be a caveat to this, because in my experience, that pattern is probably something that you need to introduce into your game once you've got to a certain level. That level being, I don't know, 12 handicap ish. And I've worked with more players than I can remember who have got themselves in trouble trying to hold pressure onto the shaft and maybe drive the hands left. I've known players who try to do that from beginner, because they've learnt it from a coach or from YouTube, and it is absolutely awful. We need to be able to deliver the energy of the club and square the face in a more kind of fluid and swooshy manner first, before then taking on these kind of more advanced patterns. Interestingly, another kind of core belief of both coaches is that although the body is responsible for a lot of the energy, the swing isn't created by just using a lot of body motion. So Cowen is all about driving the right side down to create pressure and the body responding to that. And Foley, although he's kind of much more about body sequencing and using ground reaction forces, he says the body is the symphony and the hands are the conductors, so that the hands are to a large point influencing the motion of the body. The body is reacting to what you're doing, how you're pulling the club, and what you're doing with your hands. So through those kind of fundamental patterns, that actually may not seem like much, but it does take a lot of coaching theory off the table. And and in this research into Foley and Cowen, it has been interesting that some of the more common theories are definitely not included. So things like leaving the arms up in the air and trying to rotate hard, absolutely not part of the vocabulary of Foley and Cowen. Trying to turn the chest hard, trying to turn in this way, in any way, absolutely not. A vertical up and down combination of rotation, vertical and lateral. Dropping the club on the inside and swooshing it and turning the club over, absolutely not. What else is in there? Trying to flex the wrists heavily as you start down, not in there. That needs to be prepared in the backswing. What else? Pulling the handle left across the body, that's not in there. Delaying the shoulder turn in the downswing to keep the club behind you, that probably a good idea if you're kind of dramatically rotating the shoulders, but that is definitely not part of Cowen and Foley's move. Cowen is arms in front, and Foley wants you to be able to rotate and keep the club head behind. So keeping the club behind and delaying the chest rotation, although it would get you on the inside, creates a whole other kind of set of issues. Okay then, the drills that I've been promising. First of all, I'm going to show you the drills with these, which are readily available. If you can get hold of these, they are amazing. If not, I'll show you the drill the second way. So this is all about understanding that core part of the pivot where we are combining rotation and extension. So extension being the right hip moving upwards and a kind of push up with the knees at the same time. So these are spinny discs, and you can get them online. That I think they were initially, I got these, I have to say, from Marcus Bell, has a brilliant YouTube channel all around ground reaction force. But they're initially these are spinny discs, which I think are for people to get rid of tummy fat. I think that's the main deal. But if you get two of them, then you can really start to feel how the legs work independently of each other, obviously working together for the same goal. And then you get a different response from your ankle, hip and knee. all working kind of independently. And the drill is this. The drill is to start with your feet left, and then you go down, you rotate, and you stand up. You go down, rotate, and up. And you'll see this a lot on my channel. If not already, if you hang around the channel enough, you'll see players and live lessons doing this exercise, and it seems like it has no relevance to the golf swing at all. But when you can create that motion as a kind of playful dance and really kind of start to feel how we go down, rotate, and push up, then we appreciate that lovely combination of rotation and vertical force. We then step off the discs using our hands, because our hands are a huge part of our coordination. We then make the same move. We sort of push down, rotate, and stand up, and then it's the opposite movement. And that, I have to say, is completely what Foley and Cowen are talking about when they talk about the legs, the spiral staircase, and the legs working kind of independently of each other. Foley talks about rotating into that lead leg, not just kind of rotating in this manner. So you can see how I'm using my hands, going backwards and forwards. I'd go back on the discs, I'd have a little go, and I do this kind of on a daily basis just to learn the pattern. I know it seems bonkers, but when you take away the discs and you add the friction of the floor, you can really feel the involvement of ankle, knee, and hip, and getting that pattern. If you don't have the discs, then you can think about it as a walking pattern. So if you just kind of do a march on the spot, you have this contralateral pattern, arms and legs kind of working in opposites, and then I would try and get the arm and leg moving together. So left knee forwards, left arm forwards, right knee forwards, right arm forwards, and then do it kind of up and down a little bit. And it starts though with getting that motion, you know, that forwards back motion of a walking pattern. Then it becomes more of a swimmer's rotation where you stretch forwards, puts a turn in the chest. That's how swimmers rotate. And then we do that more in posture, and we can feel the vertical element, and that is where great body pivot comes from. You can see the depth in my hip as it extends and moves upwards. And you can see that the right knee then flexes very quickly to then push up in the through swing. Absolutely nothing like the drill that I teach every beginner, which is to turn the shoulders with a club around your chest. There has to be that kind of vertical extension element to go with the rotation. Thank you for watching. If you're interested in getting some of those spinny discs, I think they are absolutely brilliant for learning the pivot. I'll put a link below as to where you might kind of get hold of such a thing. And if you're also interested in understanding the differences between Foley and Cowen, then that's a video linked down below here. And before I see you next time, good luck, play well.